What happens when a truly loyal person is hurt? It's a question most people never think about until they witness it firsthand. Loyalty is a rare and powerful virtue. It's not given freely, it's earned through deep trust, unwavering dedication, and relentless support. But when that loyalty is betrayed, the impact is catastrophic. The pain is profound, and the transformation that follows is unlike anything you could imagine. People often assume that loyalty is weakness, that those who remain devoted are somehow naive or easily manipulated. But that assumption couldn't be further from the truth. Loyalty requires strength, patience, and resilience. It's a choice made over and over again, even when circumstances become difficult. But when that loyalty is exploited or taken for granted, the reaction is anything but predictable. When a loyal person is hurt, they don't simply move on. They process the pain deeply, dissecting every detail, replaying moments to understand why their trust was betrayed. This is not mere sadness or disappointment. It's a brutal reckoning with reality. They confront their own vulnerability, their misplaced faith, their sacrifice for someone who may never have deserved it. And once they reach clarity, something changes. The loyalty that once bound them to another person becomes a source of inner strength. They learn from the betrayal. They become wiser, harder to deceive, and far more discerning about where they place their loyalty next. What was once unconditional devotion transforms into something sharp, deliberate, and far more powerful. The irony? Many people assume that when they hurt someone loyal, that person will always be there, waiting, forgiving, and ready to reconcile. But once a loyal person has been pushed to their limit, they often make a decision that is absolute. They don't just walk away, they evolve. Their loyalty, once shattered, becomes a tool for self-reinvention. They redirect their energy toward personal growth, resilience, and mastery over their own emotions. And when they emerge from that pain, they are no longer the same person. They are stronger, more rational, and far less likely to trust so easily again. If you've ever wondered what happens when a loyal person is hurt, this is your answer. The pain doesn't destroy them. It transforms them, and what they become is something powerful beyond measure. If you find this journey fascinating and want to uncover more about the strength that emerges from betrayal, like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Comment below with your war cry, "I rise stronger," or share your own story of resilience and transformation. Because loyalty, once broken, doesn't end. It evolves, and what it becomes is a force you don't want to underestimate. Number 1. Haunted by the question, why? The mental trap of overanalysis. When a loyal person is hurt, their mind spirals into a relentless cycle of questions. It's not just pain, it's an insatiable need to understand. Why did this happen? What went wrong? Was it something they said, something they did, something they failed to see? The loyalty they once held so firmly is now weaponized against them, turning their thoughts into a torturous labyrinth of doubt, guilt, and desperate analysis. This phenomenon is not just emotional, it's psychological. It's known as rumination, a mental process where an individual continually focuses on distressing thoughts without moving toward resolution. Research published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology reveals that rumination is closely linked to depression, anxiety, and feelings of worthlessness. Loyal people, due to their inherent dedication and persistence, are particularly vulnerable to this cognitive trap. Their tendency to deeply invest in relationships makes them prime candidates for this relentless questioning. Take James, a 36-year-old schoolteacher from Denver. Known by his friends and colleagues as a man of unyielding loyalty, James had built his entire life around his marriage. For over a decade, he dedicated himself to his wife, Emily, supporting her through career struggles, family disputes, and personal setbacks. His loyalty was not a fleeting emotion, but a core principle, a guiding star that shaped every decision he made. Then, one evening, Emily admitted she had been unfaithful. The revelation shattered James's world. But the worst part was not the betrayal itself. It was the questions that followed. Why did she do this? Had he not been supportive enough? Was he too controlling? Too absent? Too devoted? The questions echoed in his mind like a broken record, tormenting him every waking moment. James became obsessed with finding answers. He reread old text messages, replayed conversations, analyzed every argument, every quiet moment, every glance she ever gave him. But instead of clarity, he only found more confusion. His thoughts became a storm, each question birthing 100 more. The search for answers consumed him, but the answers themselves remained elusive. What James didn't realize was that his obsession with understanding was not leading him toward healing. It was pulling him further away. His mind had become trapped in a cycle of rumination, where each attempt at finding clarity only deepened his suffering. According to cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, rumination is often driven by a desire for problem solving. The mind believes that by replaying events over and over, it can somehow discover the key to resolution. But when the situation involves betrayal, emotional pain, or anything outside of one's control, this approach becomes destructive rather than helpful. James's need to understand why his loyalty had been betrayed was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it was an attempt to make sense of a world that suddenly felt chaotic and unjust. On the other, it was an act of self-torment, fueled by an unconscious belief that if he could just find the right explanation, he could somehow reverse the pain. The Stoics understood this trap long before modern psychology gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now." The problem was not Emily's betrayal itself. It was James's relentless attempt to make sense of something that could not be rationalized. The truth is, betrayal rarely makes logical sense. It is often born from flaws, weaknesses, or desires within the betrayer that have nothing to do with the person who was hurt. By fixating on the question, why, James was giving away his own power. His loyalty had been twisted into a tool of self-destruction. What finally broke the cycle for James was not an answer, but acceptance. He realized that understanding the precise reasons for Emily's betrayal was irrelevant to his own healing. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" he began to ask a different question. "What can I do to move forward?" This shift in perspective was transformative. Rather than searching for answers that would never satisfy him, James redirected his energy toward rebuilding his own life. He took up running, something he had always enjoyed but neglected during his marriage. He rekindled friendships, pursued professional development, and even started volunteering at a local community center. But the most powerful change came from his daily practice of journaling. Every morning, he would write down his thoughts, acknowledging the pain, the confusion, the anger, and then he would end each entry with a commitment to focus on what he could control, his own actions, thoughts, and growth. Psychologists have found that journaling can significantly reduce rumination and improve emotional resilience. By putting thoughts into words, the mind is able to organize and process them more effectively, breaking the cycle of obsessive questioning. Practical strategies for breaking the cycle of rumination. 1. Mindful journaling. Dedicate 10 minutes each morning to writing down your thoughts. Acknowledge your pain, but then shift your focus to what you can control. Write about your goals, your progress, and the steps you are taking toward healing. 2. Cognitive restructuring. Challenge your own thoughts. When you catch yourself asking why, redirect the question. Instead of searching for answers, focus on actions. Ask yourself, what can I do today to improve my own life? 3. Physical exercise. Engage in activities that demand your full attention. Exercise has been shown to reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety by releasing endorphins and promoting cognitive clarity. 4. Acceptance practices. Remind yourself that not every question has an answer. Some things cannot be understood, only accepted. By embracing this reality, you reclaim your own power. 5. Limit rumination. Set a timer for 5 minutes and allow yourself to ruminate if necessary. But once the timer ends, force yourself to redirect your attention to something productive. James's journey was not about finding the perfect answer to his questions. It was about realizing that the search itself was causing him pain. By releasing his need for understanding, he reclaimed his own mind. As Marcus Aurelius taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. James discovered that true healing doesn't come from solving every question. It comes from letting go of the need to ask. Number 2. Feeling lost. Questioning loyalty and goodness itself. When a loyal person is betrayed, they don't just lose trust in someone else. They lose faith in themselves. It's not just about heartbreak or disappointment. It's about a complete breakdown of everything they believed in. Their dedication, their principles, their very identity is called into question. And worst of all, they wonder if being loyal was a mistake from the beginning. Loyalty at its core is built upon the belief that goodness will be returned with goodness. It's a moral code, a guiding star that directs their actions and decisions. To be loyal is to choose integrity over convenience, to stand firm when others falter, to give when others would only take. It is a rare quality, precious and unwavering. But when that loyalty is met with betrayal, it leaves a wound that feels impossible to heal. Consider Ethan, a 40-year-old firefighter from Dallas. Known by his friends and colleagues as a man of integrity, Ethan's loyalty extended beyond his personal relationships. It was a part of his identity, his dedication to his family, his profession, and his own code of ethics. He was the type of man who would always be there, no matter the circumstances, no matter the cost. When his best friend Mark was struggling with alcoholism, Ethan stood by his side for years. He offered support, shelter, guidance, whatever was needed. He believed that loyalty meant never giving up on someone, even when they had given up on themselves. And when Mark finally got sober, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a validation of his belief that loyalty was worth every sacrifice. But then came the betrayal. One night, Mark stole money from Ethan to fund a relapse. It wasn't just the theft that hurt. It was the fact that it came from the very person Ethan had poured so much of himself into. The man he had trusted, defended, and supported had taken advantage of his kindness. Ethan felt lost. For weeks, he questioned everything. Had his loyalty been a weakness? Had he been naive, blinded by his own desire to be good? Worse, he wondered if loyalty itself was nothing more than a flaw, a trait that left him open to exploitation by those who never deserved his trust. This sense of loss was not just emotional. It was philosophical. Ethan found himself grappling with questions about morality, integrity, and the nature of goodness itself. Was being loyal still the right path, or had he been chasing an ideal that only led to pain and disappointment? The Stoics were not unfamiliar with this kind of existential crisis. They believed that suffering often arises not from events themselves, but from our interpretation of those events. Epictetus wrote, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But how can you react rationally when your entire belief system has been shattered? For Ethan, the pain wasn't just about losing Mark's friendship. It was about losing his own sense of direction. He had built his life on the belief that loyalty was a virtue worth cultivating. But now, that foundation felt unstable, as if everything he had once valued had been turned against him. He began to question whether he should continue being loyal to others at all. What was the point of integrity if it only led to betrayal? What was the point of goodness if it was only exploited by those who had none? Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that arises from holding contradictory beliefs or values. Ethan's loyalty to Mark was rooted in the belief that goodness would eventually be rewarded. But the betrayal shattered that expectation, leaving Ethan struggling to reconcile his actions with the harshness of reality. To make matters worse, Ethan's internal struggle wasn't just a philosophical crisis. It manifested in his daily life. His motivation at work declined, his relationships with family and friends grew distant. He found himself questioning whether any of his efforts truly mattered. The Stoics believe that not everyone is worthy of your trust or loyalty. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." The process is a mutual one. Men learn as they teach. It's a brutal truth, one that Ethan had to confront. But Ethan's breakthrough didn't come from understanding why Mark betrayed him. It came from understanding why he had placed so much faith in someone who repeatedly failed to value that faith. His loyalty, he realized, was not the problem. It was the indiscriminate way he had applied it. He came to a realization. Loyalty is not a weakness, but it must be earned. His mistake was not in being loyal, but in giving that loyalty to someone who had proven, time and again, that he could not be trusted. Ethan's journey was not about abandoning his principles, it was about refining them. Once Ethan accepted that not everyone deserved his loyalty, he began to rebuild himself. His dedication to goodness remained, but it was now tempered with discernment. He understood that true loyalty was a gift, not a guarantee, and it should only be given to those who had earned it. Practical strategies for overcoming the crisis of loyalty. 1. Selective loyalty. Not everyone is worthy of your dedication. Assess whether the person you're loyal to has proven themselves through their actions, not just their words. 2. Cognitive reframing. Instead of questioning your own goodness, question whether your loyalty was misplaced. Recognize that betrayal reflects more about the betrayer than about you. 3. Reestablishing core values. Write down your principles and revisit them daily. Loyalty should be grounded in your own integrity, not dependent on external validation. 4. Boundaries. Loyalty does not mean limitless tolerance. Establish clear boundaries to protect your own well-being. 5. Self-reflection. Ask yourself whether your actions are aligned with your own values, not just the expectations of others. Journaling can be a powerful tool for clarifying your own beliefs. Ethan's struggle was not about whether loyalty was worth it. It was about understanding that loyalty is only valuable when given to those who truly deserve it. The Stoics taught that virtue is not defined by the actions of others, but by your own principles. Ethan reclaimed his own integrity, not by abandoning loyalty, but by sharpening it into something far more powerful. Seneca's words rang true. No man can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about lengthening it, or believes that he will be wounded by the things which do not wound him. Ethan's pain was real, but it was the meaning he assigned to that pain that determined his recovery. And once he understood that, he found his way forward. Number 3. The inner struggle. The battle between letting go and holding on. The hardest wars are the ones fought within. When a loyal person is betrayed, the conflict doesn't just exist between them and the one who hurt them. It exists within their own mind, tearing them apart from the inside. It's a vicious tug of war between the desire to let go and the desperate need to hold on. And the more they struggle, the deeper the wounds become. Loyalty is a virtue grounded in commitment and resilience. It's a bond forged over time, built through trust, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication. But when that loyalty is betrayed, it triggers a conflict that feels impossible to resolve. Part of them clings to the past, yearning for things to return to the way they were. Another part screams to let go, to abandon everything that once mattered. It's a battle between the heart and the mind. And it's brutal. Consider David, a 39-year-old lawyer from San Francisco. For years, he had poured himself into his marriage with Rebecca. They met in law school, endured grueling study sessions, financial hardships, and years of building their careers. David's loyalty to Rebecca was unwavering. It wasn't just love, it was dedication, a commitment to stand by her through anything. But one evening, Rebecca confessed to having an affair. The revelation shattered David's world. The betrayal wasn't just an act of infidelity, it was a violation of everything he had built his life around. But what came next was even more devastating. David's mind became a battlefield. On one side, the voice of reason told him to let go, to cut Rebecca out of his life and move forward. But another voice, the one rooted in loyalty, kept pulling him back. It insisted that their marriage could be saved, that his dedication was worth something, that the years they spent together couldn't simply be discarded. David's loyalty had always been his strength, but now it became his tormentor. He found himself replaying conversations, analyzing every argument, every mistake, every compromise he had made. His thoughts became a constant loop of what if and why. It was a form of mental torture, an obsession that left him exhausted and broken. And worst of all, he couldn't make a decision. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort experienced when holding conflicting beliefs or desires. David's loyalty to Rebecca clashed violently with his need to protect himself from further harm. The dissonance was so overwhelming that he felt paralyzed, unable to move in any direction. According to a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, unresolved cognitive dissonance can lead to emotional exhaustion, anxiety, and even depression. The brain is wired to seek consistency, to align thoughts, emotions, and actions into a coherent whole. But when loyalty and betrayal collide, that coherence is shattered. David's inner struggle wasn't just about deciding whether to stay or leave. It was about reconciling two parts of himself that seemed irreconcilable. His loyalty made him want to forgive, to rebuild what had been broken. But his pride, his pain, his sense of self-preservation all urged him to walk away. The Stoics understood the torment of inner conflict. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." For David, his struggle was not just about losing Rebekah, it was about losing himself in the process. His own mind had become a prison, his thoughts spiraling into darkness and confusion. What made the battle even more difficult was the fact that his loyalty was not something he could simply switch off. It was a fundamental part of who he was. To let go of Rebekah felt like betraying his own principles, but to continue holding on was destroying him. He vacillated between moments of strength and moments of weakness. One day, he would convince himself to cut ties completely, to rebuild his life from the ground up. The next, he would find himself scrolling through old photos, replaying memories, grasping for something that no longer existed. The internal conflict was relentless. It consumed his energy, corrupted his motivation, and eroded his self-esteem. He began to question everything, not just his relationship with Rebekah, but his own judgment, his own identity, his own capacity to heal. The Stoics taught that suffering arises from attachment to things outside our control. Epictetus once said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." David's suffering was not just about Rebekah's betrayal, it was about his own inability to reconcile his conflicting desires. The most painful part of David's struggle was the realization that his loyalty had become a form of self-sabotage. His dedication to Rebekah had been so intense, so absolute, that even after her betrayal, he couldn't release himself from its grip. His loyalty, once a source of strength, had turned into a weapon used against himself. The inner battle reached its breaking point one night, when David found himself sitting alone in his office, surrounded by case files he hadn't touched in days. His work was suffering, his health was deteriorating, his friendships were fading away. The conflict within him was consuming everything. But then something shifted, not through some grand revelation or sudden clarity, but through exhaustion. David realized that his loyalty had to be redefined. It couldn't be something given without limits, without discernment. Loyalty, he understood, was meant to be a source of strength, not suffering. He finally accepted that his struggle wasn't about Rebekah. It was about his own inability to let go of an ideal that no longer existed. The conflict wasn't between his loyalty and his pride. It was between his loyalty and reality. For David, the path forward began with a simple decision: to be loyal to himself, to reclaim his own mind, his own life, his own happiness. He recognized that true loyalty is not about clinging to someone who has betrayed you. It's about standing firm in your own principles, even when that means letting go. Marcus Aurelius's wisdom rang true. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. David's inner struggle didn't end overnight, but by choosing to redirect his loyalty inward, he began to find peace. His own mind, once a battlefield, became a place of strength and clarity, and from that clarity he began to rebuild himself. Number 4. Learning to accept reality. The freedom of letting go. Acceptance is not surrender. It is not weakness. It is strength of the highest order. When a loyal person has been betrayed and battered by their own internal struggle, the most powerful weapon they can wield is acceptance. The realization that not everyone deserves their loyalty. The understanding that some things, no matter how hard they try to hold on, are not meant to be saved. It's a shift that doesn't happen overnight. It begins as a flicker of awareness, a tiny voice that whispers, "It's not your fault." And from that whisper grows a resilience that changes everything. Acceptance isn't about forgetting the betrayal. It's about acknowledging it, facing it, and then choosing to move forward anyway. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." These words reflect a profound truth. Acceptance is not about giving up. It's about recognizing that not everything is within your control, and that clinging to what cannot be changed only deepens the wound. Consider Michael, a 42-year-old software engineer from Seattle. after investing years of loyalty, dedication, and love into his marriage, his wife left him without warning. For months, Michael fought against the reality of what had happened. He replayed conversations, analyzed every mistake, convinced himself that if he tried hard enough, he could somehow repair what was broken. But as time passed, he began to realize that his efforts were only causing him more pain. The woman he had been loyal to had made her decision. His loyalty, though genuine and pure, could not change the choices of another person. And finally, after months of internal struggle, Michael embraced the truth. His loyalty was not meant to be wasted on someone who did not value it. Acceptance did not mean erasing the memories or pretending the pain never existed. It meant releasing himself from the need to fix something that was beyond his control. It meant acknowledging that his own dedication was not flawed. Only the person he had given it to was undeserving. From that moment, Michael's perspective shifted. He began to redirect his energy away from the past and toward his own growth. Acceptance became a turning point, a catalyst for transformation. Instead of searching for answers he could never find, he focused on rebuilding himself. He rekindled friendships, took up new hobbies, and started his own software consulting business. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain resurfaced, when the memories threatened to drag him back into the depths of his own mind. But each time, Michael chose acceptance over resistance. He understood that healing was not about erasing the past, but about embracing the present. The Stoics believe that suffering arises from our desire to control what is beyond our power. When a loyal person learns to accept reality, they break free from that cycle of suffering. They reclaim their own strength by releasing what was never truly theirs to hold. Michael's journey taught him that true loyalty begins with himself. By accepting that not everyone is deserving of his dedication, he freed himself from the chains of expectation. And in that freedom, he discovered something powerful, the ability to choose where his loyalty would go from that moment forward. Acceptance does not mean abandoning one's principles. It means refining them. It means choosing to place one's loyalty in places that nurture growth, integrity, and genuine connection. It means understanding that some battles are not meant to be won, but rather released. The moment Michael embraced acceptance, his life began to change. His energy returned, his creativity flourished, and most importantly, his loyalty was no longer a weakness. It was a strength that he could wield with precision and purpose. Acceptance, for him, was not the end. It was a new beginning, and it was rooted in a simple but powerful truth. He could not control the actions of others, but he could control how he responded to them. Marcus Aurelius's words echoed in his mind. Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. Michael finally understood that his destiny was not something to be repaired or reclaimed. It was something to be embraced. And with that understanding, he moved forward, stronger, wiser, and free. Number 5, turning pain into power, transforming suffering into strength. Pain can be destructive. It can break you down, leave you shattered, and make you question everything you once believed in. But for those who choose to embrace the challenge, pain can also become the greatest source of strength. It's not about denying the suffering, it's about using it, harnessing it, transforming it into something that propels you forward rather than holding you back. Seneca understood this truth. Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. The Stoics believe that hardship is not something to be feared, but something to be confronted. Pain, in their philosophy, was not an enemy but a teacher, and the lesson it taught was resilience. Take Chris, a 35-year-old architect from Boston. His loyalty had been betrayed by a business partner who stole his ideas and used them to establish a competing firm. The betrayal left Chris devastated. His career was jeopardized, his reputation tarnished, and his confidence shattered. For weeks, Chris found himself drowning in anger and regret. But then something changed. Rather than allowing his pain to consume him, he decided to channel it into something productive. He used his anger as fuel, his frustration as motivation. Every sleepless night became an opportunity to refine his skills, build new connections, and expand his vision beyond anything he had imagined before. Instead of avoiding the pain, Chris leaned into it. He allowed it to sharpen his focus, drive his creativity, and strengthen his resolve. The betrayal, rather than destroying him, became the catalyst for his most remarkable growth. It wasn't an easy process. The pain remained, but instead of viewing it as a wound, he saw it as a challenge. Every time doubt crept into his mind, he reminded himself that his suffering could either weaken him or empower him. The choice was his alone. Months later, Chris established a new architectural firm, one built entirely on his own terms, with principles rooted in integrity and creativity. His previous partner's betrayal no longer haunted him. Instead, it became a milestone in his journey, a turning point that pushed him to achieve far more than he would have otherwise. The Stoics teach us that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. When you decide to transform your pain into power, you reclaim your own mind. You convert what was meant to harm you into the very force that propels you forward. Chris's journey was not about forgetting what happened. It was about using the betrayal as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. And in doing so, he discovered that pain, when harnessed correctly, is not a weakness, but a source of unimaginable strength. Seneca's wisdom holds true. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Chris learned that lesson through hardship. And what he built from that pain was something no betrayal could ever destroy. Number 6. Rising stronger. Rebirth from the ashes. True resilience isn't just about surviving hardship. It's about emerging from it renewed, fortified, and wiser than before. When a loyal person suffers betrayal, the journey toward healing is not a straight path. It is a brutal, relentless climb from the depths of despair to the summit of clarity. But once they reach that summit, they find themselves stronger than ever, more determined, more discerning, and more at peace. The pain that once consumed them becomes the very fire that reforges their spirit. They do not simply move on, they transform. And the transformation is powerful beyond measure, because genuine goodness is not fragile. It is unyielding. It is built upon principles that withstand even the harshest of storms. Loyalty, integrity, kindness. These are not traits that vanish when tested. Instead, they deepen, strengthen, and sharpen. Betrayal doesn't destroy a truly good person. It forces them to confront their own power, to reclaim their own worth, and to rebuild themselves from the ashes. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." To a loyal person, betrayal is not an end. It is a new beginning. The scars left by the pain are not signs of weakness, but marks of resilience. Take Sarah, a 38-year-old entrepreneur from Chicago. Her business partner, someone she considered a close friend, betrayed her trust by secretly sabotaging their projects to gain control over the company. The betrayal was calculated, cruel, and utterly devastating. For months, Sarah felt lost, questioning everything she had once believed in. But instead of allowing the pain to paralyze her, Sarah chose to embrace it. She channeled her frustration and hurt into building something greater. With each passing day, her focus grew sharper, her resilience stronger. She restructured her business, cut ties with toxic individuals, and began anew with a vision clearer than ever. The betrayal, though painful, became the catalyst for her most remarkable growth. What was meant to break her only served to sharpen her determination. Her success became undeniable proof that those who are truly good can rise from even the darkest of moments. Meanwhile, her betrayer suffered the consequences of his own greed. Isolated, burdened by guilt, and struggling to maintain the very empire he tried to seize from her, he found himself trapped in a prison of his own making. While Sarah rose from the ashes, he remained stuck in the ruins of his own deceit. The Stoics taught that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control how we respond to them. And in that response lies our greatest strength. When a loyal person chooses to rise instead of fall, to grow instead of wither, they become something far more powerful than they ever were before. Sarah's journey was not about revenge. It was about reclaiming her own power. And as she rebuilt her life, she found something even more valuable than success: peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing that no betrayal can define her, that her worth is not determined by the cruelty of others, but by her own courage and resilience. The reality is simple. Those who betray loyalty often find themselves trapped by their own actions. While the one they hurt moves forward, stronger and wiser, they remain chained to their own regrets. Because betrayal is not just an act against another. It is a poison that corrodes the soul of the betrayer. And those who are truly good, who rise from betrayal with integrity and tact, are the ones who ultimately prevail. They carry forward with newfound strength, knowing that their goodness is not a weakness, but an unbreakable force. It's not the betrayal that defines them, it's their ability to rise from it. And those who rise stronger, who reclaim their peace and purpose, leave behind the darkness that others tried to impose upon them. Because real strength is not about avoiding pain, it's about transforming it. Conclusion: betrayal is not the end. For those who possess true loyalty and integrity, it is merely a crucible, a test of strength, resilience, and self-worth. When you emerge from that fire, you are no longer the same person. You are stronger, sharper, and far more discerning about where you place your loyalty next. Betrayal does not destroy you, it transforms you. The truth is, those who betray others often find themselves trapped by their own actions. Their regret and guilt become chains that bind them to the very wounds they inflicted. They remain stuck in their own mistakes, haunted by the knowledge that they destroyed something precious, something they can never recover. But for those who choose to rise, betrayal becomes a catalyst for growth. It teaches you who is truly worthy of your trust and who is not. It forces you to confront your own pain, to harness it, and to turn it into power. And in that transformation, you find something priceless: peace. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Betrayal is an obstacle, but for those who understand the true power of resilience, it becomes the very path forward. If you've ever been hurt, betrayed, or taken for granted, know that your journey is not over. You have the strength to rebuild yourself from the ashes. You have the power to transform your pain into something extraordinary. And most importantly, you have the wisdom to choose where your loyalty will go from this moment forward. Rise from betrayal, reclaim your power, and let those who failed to value you watch as you soar higher than ever before. If you resonate with this message and you are ready to reclaim your own strength, like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Comment below with your declaration, "I rise stronger," or share your own story of betrayal and how you turned it into power. Your journey of resilience could be the inspiration someone else needs. Thank you for watching, and remember, the strength to rise is already within you. It's time to unleash it.